Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and tonight I'm going to be reviewing Quarantine Circular for the Nintendo Switch. This is a pseudo-sequel of sorts to Subsurface Circular, which I reviewed a few months ago. It's not totally a sequel, apart from one little itty-bitty reference in the opening sequence. It's more so of kind of the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask syndrome, where it uses the same language and basic functionality of the previous game, but in actuality it's a totally different story. So basically, if you haven't heard of or watched my review for Subsurface Circular, then basically how it works is this game is entirely about reading and making responses to what everyone else is saying. The reason why there's no voice acting this time is because everyone is wearing suits and everyone's from different nations and languages. And so the translator is setting up this automatic translation of a unified language, which apparently is American English, apart from their spelling of color. You'll eventually gain focus points that allow you to say more things in a conversation than you'd normally be allowed to say, and occasionally there are puzzles that you need to solve to keep things interesting. Most of them are pretty simple, but occasionally you have to use wordplay type puzzles, or you have to go inside your notebook, because each individual character in this game takes down notes of what's been going on in the storyline, and sometimes they'll leave little hints about what you might need to do, which might involve a number code or some wordplay. These are probably the toughest part of the entire game, because this is not really a game that you can get a game over in the traditional sense. It's more so that, unlike Subsurface Circular, choices actually make a difference in this game. In the previous game, you could get to the ending basically however you wanted, no matter what choices you made. And while the narrative structure is similar here, there are definitely huge variables that you can put into play. For example, when you first meet this alien, you could choose to be polite or you could choose to be rude. You could choose to leave the restraint on, or you could choose to deactivate it. Little decisions like this end up creating multiple endings. I'm not sure exactly how many there were. I've gotten 3. And I'd like to say I got the best ending on my first try, but not everyone thinks the same as me. So this game allows you to sort of express your personality and see what the consequences are when you've got an alien from another species who doesn't necessarily understand how humans think. So you have to ask yourself, are you the cautious type? Are you the headlong type? Are you going to be the overly trusting type? What, in the grand scheme of things, is going to be the best thing to do? Now, I don't want to spoil how to get the best ending, because it's really up to you. The choice is, what type of ending do you want to have? So this game does a great job of making its subject material a lot easier to grasp on a fundamental level. I mean, sure, they don't really give straight answers to a lot of things, like this plague, for example. Pretty much all you really need to know is that there's a plague that's making sure that all these humans are wearing suits so that they don't have to design a bunch of human bodies. You know, they're indie developers, they can't manage everything. But what they have managed here is really amazing. The texture work is incredible. And I love how, because this is on the Switch, whenever Gabriel, which is the name of the alien, growls, you can feel it on the HD rumble, which you don't get that when you're playing with a Pro Controller. I tried when I was recording this footage, and it just doesn't feel the same as when you're in handheld mode or when you're using the Joy-Con grip. So I really don't recommend using the Pro Controller unless you're a stickler for traditional control methods. This game also has a hint system, although I only found a need to use it like once or twice, because most of the time you can just keep pressing away and guessing at what you need to say, and eventually you'll probably get it right out of sheer dumb luck. This game's storyline is for the most part minimalistic. It really all boils down to, should you trust this alien or not, and what should we do about this worldwide plague? Despite that it has Circular in the title, you don't really need to know anything about Subsurface Circular to fully understand the nuances. I should mention that if you didn't like that game, then you probably aren't going to like this one. While I do think this is a much better game, as far as how the mechanics work, as far as how you've got different meters, like how much does the alien trust you, what decisions are you going to make that'll affect the outcome. There's still a ton of reading. Like I said earlier, that's all you do. Really, the only variables are what are you going to say when it's your turn to respond. Now, if you did like Subsurface Circular, then what's here is significantly better because you have multiple characters. You start out by controlling Mark Perez, but boy, do you get a lot more perspectives than that, and so as a result, you basically get to jump inside a lot of different minds. And then you have to ask yourself again, okay, do I want to continue being the friendly person, or do I want to switch over to being a rude person when you get the commanding officer? Stuff like that. So this is a fairly short game. You can probably beat it in about an hour, maybe even less than that if you're a fast reader. And because of that, it makes it really fun to try to replay the game and find different endings. In fact, you can even go to a specific sequence and change what happens in that sequence if you don't want to play the entire game from the start. You also have the option of going back through the game with developer commentary, which adds a lot of insight into what the director had in mind when he wrote the scenarios. You can also unlock an art gallery so you can see more of like what the characters look like, concept art. And overall, I just think that for an indie game, this is fairly well done. The production values are surprisingly great. The music starts out really surreal, but eventually it starts picking up in intensity the further the situation escalates. And the dialogue feels, for the most part, really believable. Like, this is probably what I would expect interactions between humans and aliens to go like. I would recommend buying this if you're a huge fan of the graphic novel genre, or more like flat out novel, because there's not really too much animation that goes on here apart from Gabriel's lips. But if you're not a fan of graphic novels, I would totally skip this. This isn't going to change your mind. In fact, it's probably going to ruin the genre for you because there's just not enough gameplay besides choosing what you're going to say. However, if you do like the visual novel genre, the price is absolutely outstanding. I only paid $6 for this, and mind you, I got this when it just came out, so you're guaranteed to get a good deal. And I would say $6 is probably a really reasonable price for a game this text heavy but also very short and simple. So with that, thank you very much for listening. Let me know in the comments section if you have any questions, and until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and just out of curiosity, I'd be curious how you guys would react if you first saw an alien. Would you choose the kindness route, the neutral route, or the genocide route? Undertale reference. Couldn't help myself. Anyway, have a good night. Bye!